Welcome to Liberty Ukraine today. Our guests are Denis Yeliseevich, businessman, and Serhiy Dorotich, entrepreneur and safe pop movement leader. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good health to you.
People wanted us to invite two guests who both support Ukraine's well-being and prosperity, but each of them has their own vision for resolving the situation. But let's start with the urgent news for today. What is happening today? Ukrainians are struggling to survive amid war, facing food lines and lacking electricity, water, and heat. But right now, people are discussing one situation as of today, the searches that took place at Yulia Tymoshenko's place. What are people talking about? Let me tell you, our guests. Today, Denis says that the old elites should fade into oblivion, meaning they can't change our economy for the better. But Serhiy believes the following, that Yulia is the one who can help individual entrepreneurs survive in this situation and thus reform the economy. So the question for you is, Yulia Volodymyrivna, is this a real lifeline for the economy today? Or a political marauder who uses criticism to break through to the trough again?
Yes, you are funds with a face value of $100.
Then can I just send it to your phone in Signal?
So can you do it right now, or will it be after approval?
Only after approval.
Just send it in Signal.
I'll send it in Signal.
Well then, allow me, Ms. Tetiana, to correct myself. I believe that Tymoshenko represents Ukrainian realities. Why? Of course, I would also like all the old elites to disappear. But that's a revolutionary path. And right now, when Ukraine is at war, that's definitely not something we can do. Any power vacuum, even a momentary one, will be used by our Eastern enemy, and they will definitely take advantage of it, and history will repeat itself in a spiral. We already had the Ukrainian People's Republic, we remember. There was Hrushevsky, there was Skoropadsky, there were the heroes of the heavenly Kruti, who were just young guys, the elite patriots, romantics who were simply destroyed. Unfortunately, a revolutionary approach isn't possible now. And if we look at history in different countries, the North-South Korea War, after the war ended due to the freezing, so to speak, of the conflict, the war there, by the way, is still not over. There is no full peace agreement. There is a ceasefire. So there were terrible years, turbulent years, where there was actually a military dictatorship. I talked to South Koreans who didn't even want to return to South Korea from America now. Even though everything is completely different there now, it's a very different country. They remember those turbulent times to prevent them from happening again. For us, it could be worse. We might face a civil war with greater casualties. We always think we've hit rock bottom, but every day shows us that rock bottom can go even deeper. So I believe that in order to save Ukrainians, whether you want to or not, you have to make a deal with the lesser evil. No one has an elite, and no one doubts that it's not just our politicians who are rotten. Our whole society is rotten. Look at the Russification. Look at the celebration of closed borders. Look at this. Why aren't you at the front? So the society is sick. And with this sick society, it's hard. It's really hard to make a revolutionary change. That's why we need to use the least tainted politicians, so that during the transitional period, we can create the opportunity for the truly healthy seed to grow. I gave an example in the previous broadcast, like Denis Yeliseevich. He has political ambitions, I don't. But for him to realize them, a transitional period is needed, because he has already spent a lot of time abroad, and he can't immediately return to politics now. We have legislative restrictions. You can't just destroy the legislation with a saber. Well, I'll say it's a risk. That's why I believe that evolutionarily, gradually, this can be done, of course, with pressure and control. And there are no saints.
Okay, let's move on to Denis, and let's agree that everyone will speak for roughly the same amount of time.
And you set the timing, you give the timing, that will be better.
Yes, literally 3 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. I remember well that you said what Denis will do. He has ambitions, what he will do, Denis. The question for you is, what will you do without a transitional government, let's say, if you come to power, without Yulia Tymoshenko, because she is considered as an option for a transitional body? And who is she? Is she a political marauder, or does she work for the benefit of entrepreneurs?
Yulia Tymoshenko, an oligarch is an oligarch. That's an oligarch first and foremost. I just want to correct Sergei right away. I have never declared any clear political ambitions. I might want maybe to be president, but you also have to make the decision to pursue it. I don't have anything close to that decision. Maybe it looks that way from the outside, I agree, but I don't have anything like that at all. About Tymoshenko. Well, as far as I know, let Sergei answer here whether it's true or not that Yulia Tymoshenko is Sergei's political partner. Honestly, I don't know. I heard such a rumor, so I understand, well, kind of his statement. But from my point of view, any half measures are a sentence for Ukraine. We already went through these half measures, even with great difficulty. Half measures during the Maidan, well, after the Maidan in 2014. Yatsenyuk is slightly better than Yanukovych with some hesitation, and that's it. Yulia, by the way, rode out in a wheelchair in high heels. How did it all end? It ended in collapse. Why risk anything with half measures? They're not enough. We need something radical. Everyone who has ever held power in Ukraine should be banned for life, with no exceptions. Why for life? Because after Yanukovych's time, they did a lustration for 5 or 10 years and everyone returned. Keeper, Yermak's godfather, and the Odessa region's governor or military head kept working calmly even after being officially lustrated. In short, that's the kind of mess that's going on, so there's nothing to discuss here. I read a post by Dubinsky today claiming Tymoshenko is being considered as a possible negotiator with Putin, a compromise figure. This is the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine undercover. Her conflict with globalists is causing her downfall. So if Yulia Tymoshenko is proven corrupt by the Bureau, let's say, turns out everyone still supports her representing Ukraine. I'm against it, against Zelensky, Tymoshenko, Poroshenko, and the globalists.
That's a completely reasonable position. Once again, I'm also against the globalists, definitely against Zelensky and the lawlessness that's happening, and definitely against letting old politicians close the door to the future. However, I'll say it again, look, you're right, but you're talking about a revolutionary path. But who is going to do it? So it turns out it's just a vacuum. So we're counting on society to generate some, let's say, as of today, a no-name, someone who isn't well known yet. We have to admit Tymoshenko is a top politician, not just recognized, but well known. So we're hoping for a chance that someone will take the lead, will reformat all the legislation, because most of the legislation, and Yeliseevich will agree with me on this, it's not even worth the trash can it should be thrown into, because it's all set up that way. Who will do this? That's a revolutionary path. You can go all in, you can, but it's a risk with a high probability. That's the collapse of Ukraine, the collapse of Ukrainian statehood. Because if there wasn't an external aggressor, it could have been done. The front is collapsing, and Russia could advance, like in 1918 on horseback to Lviv or wherever they choose. That's why I mention these risks. This is war, destruction, civil conflict, and honestly, we have several militarized bank groups. Well, Mr. Yeliseevich, you and I are talking about the same thing, just in different languages. These people are armed thugs. Criminals who are just bandits in the armed forces of Ukraine's uniforms. Only some authority can restrain them. Not at all. I'm not defending Tymoshenko. We're just political partners right now. Why? We as a movement understand something you and I have both discussed on our broadcasts. The state is gradually clearing out the entrepreneurial field. First with cash registers, the electronic value-added tax administration system, then regularly with regulations, and now the value-added tax. That is, the value-added tax is now being applied to individual entrepreneurs, which is the most corrupt tax. The kind that doesn't exist in the United States, which both you and I oppose, and we know we can't resist alone. From 2019-2021, I organized and led protests, but now we can't even protest. I've been called a Kremlin agent for a long time, with Medvedchuk's involvement and others I don't even know. Anyone helping people leave now is putting them in danger, since thugs may start shooting. That's the risk. They'll be ordered to attack and they're thugs. The scum war has brought up now in the spotlight, talking about war until 2035 and beyond. That's why I support this peaceful approach. Yes, it's risky. There is such a risk, and you're right to say that it could be another scam, like Poroshenko did, like Yatsenyuk did. But if you weigh it, what's more valuable? Human life or that kind of risk? The revolution, it was a revolution of dignity. It was invented by geniuses and carried out by romantics and idealists. But the villain Poroshenko took advantage of it. Well, that's the truth, and now there's a risk that we might take advantage of it too. Back then it was a revolution, but now I'm talking without a revolution.
So tell us more about the mechanism in detail.
The mechanism is this. You signed a memorandum. We signed a memorandum with Tymoshenko, who agreed to the terms. She became a political partner because we contacted everyone, but only she replied. Oh, maybe Poroshenko will reply. We sent an open letter to everyone. I hoped Poroshenko would come to his senses and make amends, that his conscience might awaken, but only Tymoshenko responded. I thought maybe Zaluzhny, despite my criticism of his defense ideas involving women, might have a message, or maybe Budanov or some new force would. I don't back military leaders in power, but we need help. Even if people are brought out without political power, legal support, publicity, or a microphone, it's dangerous. No one responded except Tymoshenko. We kept that result and signed a detailed memorandum, which we've posted and documented, unlike with Zelensky, who only gave a vague statement like, individual entrepreneurs, we don't touch them. We've documented everything, including the value-added tax, and are working with her. Definitely, we agreed that we are not joining the party. We are moving forward with our own entrepreneurial group. We have our statutory goals to protect rights and freedoms. First and foremost, the right to easy, free, and simple entrepreneurship. But if she fulfills the commitment she made in the memorandum, we will support her. And we will say, well, who else? We're having a heated discussion in the movement. They accuse me, Dorotich, of selling out. And I respond, who else? Tell me with whom? Tell me with whom? And everyone says, well, better with no one. We're just waiting for them to destroy us. After the war, it'll be too late. No entrepreneurs, no economy, just a dictatorship, not even a planned economy.
So what's the goal? So they don't implement a 20% value-added tax. If you succeed, what happens next?
Oh no, there's much more after that. The value-added tax just united everyone for now. The next step is actually implementing it. Our memorandum says it's based on the American tax system, with some exceptions. In Ukraine, property tax is a restraint and shouldn't be implemented now. But the abolition of value-added tax for all businesses, not just for individual entrepreneurs, I believe that businesses should have a choice. God gave us two hands. A general value-added tax system and a simple fixed tax system should exist. Businesses can choose either the simple fixed tax or the general system with optimization and accounting. Next is deregulation. What is the British model 1 in, 2 out? When adopting one regulatory document, our program is ready. 2 regulatory documents must be canceled. There are a lot of them. We required canceling the gas transportation fee and transparent tariffs for electricity and utilities. So we adopted this too. This is all the work of public institutions and so on. Moreover, we have also opened up the possibility for additions and expansion to whatever extent it will be needed. Well, I know who I'm sitting down at the negotiating table with. I know the politics is tough, but this is a chance that cannot be missed. And I'm grabbing onto it. My colleagues are grabbing onto it because we understand that we can't change things on our own. Revolution is dangerous. I'm passionate myself, just like you. We must recognize that Ukraine has already sacrificed greatly.
Well, look, based on what I've heard, I just imagined everything that Serhiy was talking about. Let's say this gradually comes to life. And I don't believe that Tymoshenko will abolish the value-added tax, which they've all been living off for 30 years. I can't picture that. Well, that's just another half measure, and you say it's a plan, but someone in the Verkhovna Rada has to submit a bill and vote on it. You said you don't join Batkivshchina.
She has already submitted the bill. The first step is a moratorium on raising taxes, which is real action. She takes action while others just talk. We'll fix it. You modeled the situation well, so the move is possible. At some point, they say, well, we're not going any further. And then we'll say, well, then we're not with you. We're looking for someone who actually does it. You understand?
And will there be another transition period or not?
And that will be the transition period during which this will be gradually implemented. Well, we'll see. We're not tied down. We don't have party discipline. And if we see that Tymoshenko doesn't fulfill her commitments, then we can always collaborate with another political force, maybe a new one that could emerge during the transition period. Because right now, a new force won't appear. As soon as someone tries, they'll get shut down. We may like it or not. Valery Toker, he has a specific vision. He just showed up, and where is he now? Anyone who appears on the political horizon right now will just get cut down. That's the point. And in order to give others a chance to grow, yes, with risk, that's why we choose this path. an evolutionary one, not a revolutionary one, and everything else is just risk. So who will ride the horses, draw their sabers, and take responsibility when thugs like the Bussificators hunters start shooting at women and children without hesitation? They are already killing people. That's a fact. You understand? They absolutely don't care. They are already killing and torturing people.
Let's return to this transitional period, the economy's development and individual entrepreneurs. Then we'll discuss Bussification and the new bill. So Dennis, if we consider Serhi's scenario and a transitional period, we need someone to make agreements and support entrepreneurs immediately. If this transitional period and that person's presidency lasts 5 or even 10 years, we can already see this is possible. And if it's the old political power, the old political forces, what will Putin do again in 3 years? And when will a new leader finally come? And then will there need to be more transitional periods again or not? How do you see this situation?
There's a lot that needs clarification here. Everyone can interpret the transitional period in their own way. From the information I have, the transitional period in Ukraine has actually already begun. This is a transitional period, and when you say 5 or 10 years, for some people that's not a transitional period anymore, that's already some kind of usurpation of power. Whoever it is, regardless of their last name, if you call this the post-war period right away. So for me, that's a fundamental ideological point, first of all. So if Serhi says he wrote to everyone and whoever responded, that's who they would collaborate with for this specific purpose. The problem is solving a single issue, that is Save FOP. I respect the organization, but it turns out that if they solve this issue, then basically all the members of Save FOP are satisfied with life. Then maybe another civic organization also wants something for themselves, they get it done, and they're satisfied with life. So I absolutely do not support this. Changing the entire system by a radical method could be called revolutionary, but I'm not urging anyone into the streets and won't. Revolutionary or evolutionary, a sharp radical method isn't always revolutionary. How do I see it? Elections are announced. Ideally, I don't want to be an idealist, but the election law should be rewritten. Because in an oligarchic country, only oligarchic parties have a shot. That's one reason. Second, with these majoritarians, there are so many nuances and everything is written so confusingly that it's unclear who can get in or not. Thank you for watching. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. New parties, new forces must enter the parliament. They'll decide what happens. Some suggest one thing, others another. But if I believe Tymoshenko will end the value-added tax, by the way, I support a profit tax or a transaction tax. I have calculated both options. Well, that would be naive. If Tymoshenko really wanted to abolish the value-added tax, would she have ended it in 30 years or at least tried? No one has even tried. I'm actually against politics altogether. So Save FOP is a big organization and I'll support it just to get myself a couple of percent, to score some points, to get some publicity as a bonus. I supported villagers or doctors with whatever they wanted just to get their votes. That's why we're in this situation today. If we're talking about real democracy, it means many parties. Everyone has a chance to get in. Thank God nobody needs television anymore. Everything can be done through the internet. And about funding. There are people maybe who will support parties in the new system like in America. Some do it for ideological reasons because they need it. All right. No, people should contribute themselves. But here, if you just announce a fundraiser, believe me, as soon as someone tries, they'll say, oh, he wants to make money. He wants to trick someone. At the same time, okay, what are you suggesting? If people don't show up, then everything is financed by an oligarch. 99.9% of oligarchs won't want to change anything, that's all. So what's my point? I won't talk long, but that's where I'm going. Sergei has a half-measure compromise approach, but I am completely uncompromising. No, it's not about me. I see how the situation is developing. Ukraine turns 35 this year. How much longer can we keep changing names and making compromises? We've already faced consequences for this many times. I also agree about the military being in power. I know how that's going to end. Today I saw that video, what's it called? Shadow, I think. When I saw that video, it made me think of Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. The flag looks similar, black with white. I see it's young guys. super editing, super production, a high quality video, lots of young guys, all with flags, all with torches, lots of that, the whole setup. So, someone is funding this. Where does the money come from? I know how it works, and now they're getting Ukraine ready. Many disadvantaged kids from troubled families are recruited by these organizations as early as age 13 or 14. He began to feel important once he got a gun, and now he's aggressive toward everyone. He dislikes Dorotich, Yeliseevich, Poroshenko, even me, and not even Trump. All he thinks is, I have a gun, I'm strong, and everyone owes me. That's it. Believe me, I just remembered a case. These compromises will cause this, since those making compromises are funding the people with black flags.
Dennis, I have a question for you as well, because you said that in order to do all this, we need to rewrite the law of Ukraine and then hold elections. Can those in the Verkhovna Rada do this or not? Because today, just pay attention to the bill that was passed, which increases criminal liability for inciting violence. Or if someone criticizes politicians or public figures, they passed this bill. Do you believe that they will pass a law that will promote democratic elections in Ukraine?
Yes, you asked who the Verkhovna Rada is? We did a broadcast a couple of days ago, and I said there that there are hundreds of people's deputies, and there are all sorts of things going on. The next day, Tymoshenko got busted. This Verkhovna Rada is a gathering of grabbers. The previous one wasn't much different. But these ones are especially cynical because there's a war and complete lawlessness going on, and they can't pass anything else. I didn't even know they passed it in the first reading. You mean Tymoshenko, Yatsenko?
Yes.
Who is Anton Yatsenko? He spent his life on tenders. Right out of school at 18, he was involved, handling hundreds of millions. In a normal country, he'd be in jail for a century, but instead he's in the Verkhovna Rada writing bills. Someone writes to me saying, you're somebody, I'll do this to you. 10 years, go to jail. So let's just do it like in Iran. Have guards, an Islamic revolution, or here, guards of the servants of the people. Let's make law enforcement, put these young guys in uniforms and start pressing everyone. I don't even want to take this Rada seriously or talk about them.
And who will pass the law? Here you go, Mr. Dennis. You're right. Who will pass the law? Who? If the Verkhovna Rada doesn't pass it? This is known as a power vacuum, which Putin fills with his army. You said it should be stopped, but who will do it? If there's no transition period, no politician, no lesser evil to negotiate with, and if you think we're only asking for one thing, we're not. We have a movement for rights and freedoms, with an emphasis on the middle class, on entrepreneurship, but there it's about the right to freedom, the inviolable right to property, the inviolable right to choose, and adherence to the Constitution and the law. We have such a front of demands laid out in the memorandum, it's really something. If Yulia satisfies it, then I will forever secure the future of my family in Ukraine. And right now I think about this a lot. It's very important. You're right. Who will change what's happening now? Who among those currently in the Verkhovna Rada? Because no one else from outside will change it. And if it's the revolutionary path they're relying on, then these young guys will come to power. They already have automatic rifles, unlike us. They'll seize power by force, create a dictatorship, and raise others like themselves. This vacuum will be filled by Putin or radicals, because it's a radical method that attracts radical people. If you tell me who, and explain, I'm a practitioner, I've written dozens of laws, I've fought, and I have experience. I understand how this system works. We either destroy it and, as they say, write our names on the ruins of autocracy. Well, you know, it's always like that. Either we use it, yes, really, polish it under control and with minimal casualties. Who will change the election law? You're right. Who will change the election law? I believe we should have only a majoritarian system. That's Ukrainian tradition. There's a huge revolution on the Maidan. The current system is purely oligarchic, but who will rewrite it?
I'll tell you, no one will give you the name of the person who will rewrite it. If we're talking about the current legislation, then I can only place my hopes on the next parliament, the next president. And then what happens? Society must always demand, no matter who is in power. If 100,000 people gather at the Verkhovna Rada demanding immediate change on the first day without violence, I'm just referring to a standard democratic process, so whoever is in that position should handle it, that's all. If people say some jerks got in, so we won't do anything.
That has nothing to do with reality, because if you don't support the lesser evil now, you'll get the greater evil. Someone like Zaluzhny will take this position, cancel martial law, and things will just keep stewing in that state. Will 100,000 of you go to Maidan? These young men will shoot you and call you Kremlin agents.
I said the next parliament. It can't be formed during the war.
And why can't the current parliament? They'll just suspend it, come up with electronic elections, do whatever they want, and push through whoever is in power now. The greater evil, we either focus, concentrate around our lesser evil and take it down. The enemy of my enemy is my partner for now. If they're fighting, I back the weaker to defeat the stronger, since I can't beat the strong one alone. These are natural processes. Zelensky didn't change the rules. They suit him.
If the Green Party or Servant of the People had replied, would you have worked with them too?
Wait, I said that this is a greater evil, this is a greater evil, it's impossible with them, they've already destroyed everything.
So you would have refused them?
Of course, I would have refused. I admit that we might have still collaborated with Poroshenko if he had realized, because it all started to go wrong with Poroshenko. All the value-added taxes, supervisory boards, gas transport fees, and more.
He created supervisory boards, which resulted in us now lacking electricity, energy, and heat.
Exactly, a totally parasitic superstructure.
If he becomes president again, then we're done for.
Wait, not president for that reason, but if he claims I did everything wrong? Even the Lord God allows people to repent and change, so we must give others that chance. As the saying goes, only saints in heaven make pots. I'll repeat, who among us now? I explained clearly what to do. We unite around a purpose, not just unite. We consolidate with him, we help so that this lesser one comes, takes on fewer obligations, the lesser evil weakens the greater, and in this way, there is a chance really having 100,000 people in the street to put pressure on this lesser one, which hasn't yet grown strong, because Zelensky has grown strong and entrenched himself with those same young men, and he really will do terrible things. And so always changing the greater one. To come to the point of changing the legislation, which will allow new political forces.
You call yourself a practitioner, so I must be a theorist. If that's true, why haven't you succeeded yet? Your claim that Tymoshenko will remove the value-added tax is just another theory.
First, why didn't it work? Well, actually, it did work out. And in the second round, most Ukrainians opposed the greater evil Poroshenko. That's part of history. Similarly, people rose up against Yanukovych. But why? Because he was the greater evil and there was pressure on businesses. Another thing is that people couldn't even imagine that they would just be used. We must learn that defeating a greater evil shouldn't lead to creating a new one. When you kill the dragon, don't become the dragon. People let Poroshenko rise. In 2014, I warned everyone, but no one listened when he appeared in a bulletproof vest. He ended the Orange Movement. It was a protest, not a revolution, though it's called the Orange Revolution. Who flushed it? I know, Tretyakov and Poroshenko, since they handled the money with Yushchenko. I knew all this, and when he arrived, I realized things would go badly.
Back then, politician Tymoshenko was also carrying dollars in printer boxes during the revolution.
Wait, do you know anyone in politics who didn't carry dollars? How do Ukrainians vote? With buckwheat, with a television that costs money, with a billboard? I participated in the elections, naively ran in a single-member district, and realized money wins. And everyone told me, Seryoja, you're doing great, but you see, he put in benches for us, planted bushes, and repaired the entrance. I said, well, I don't have those kinds of resources. Well, that's why we're voting for him. It's just an investment. He put in $1 million, then took out 10. That's how our politics works.
Sorry, but we're at war because of them. Why did we go to war? Wasn't it because of them?
We ended up at war because Zelensky was completely just lying and looking for trouble. If he had done what he said, what he promised, what did we vote for Zelensky for? What were we against?
But all these actions started with the first president and no one stopped them. And that's how the country became weak, became a victim and was attacked by the enemy.
Tatiana, Zelensky is a result of such decisions. We support the lesser evil instead of the greater one. It's a compromise here. Well, that's the reality. Let's make a deal with it. All this resulted in Zelensky, whose actions with Putin led to war, bringing the state to the brink of collapse.
Well, you still haven't answered me. Tell me, who will change the legislation? Are you saying it right?
I'm just saying, Serhiy, it needs to be done right.
And if you don't know, then what are we talking about? You should understand the algorithm.
I'm telling you the algorithm. You're saying to negotiate with the current ones.
We can even include political requirements in the memorandum, such as changing the electoral law. We can start this discussion.
I'm giving my algorithm. The people who support my point of view. I consider myself not a politician. Another person will take this on and go into politics. He goes to parliament under the current system or runs for president. I'm not sure if he gets 5%. If he didn't get 5%, at least he did everything right and all he could. People just didn't support him. So to hell with it, let it all burn. It means this country doesn't deserve to live a normal life. I love it, but I can't call it anything else.
Well, that's how it is. That's how it is. That means we lose our statehood, we cross it out. That's also one of the options.
If the Libertarian Party loses, will Ukraine collapse? Would Tymoshenko and Poroshenko still rule?
It won't win, the Libertarian Party. It will never win. It won't win because the legislation remains unchanged. Without change, no one else will come. So it won't be the lesser evil. It just will be.
They did it in Argentina. I don't know how, but I know Javier Milei was a soccer player, studied economics, and played goalkeeper. He was recognized by the people and then implemented these reforms. How did that occur?
I haven't been to Argentina, but I know their official inflation rate is 200%.
Yes, but before that it was 30,000 under the previous president.
200% inflation. Prove me wrong. It's already at 31%. Well, I saw for the year for 2025. Maybe, look, it's always better where we aren't. I don't know. I don't have a primary source from there. I can't look at it. I studied different models, spoke with South Koreans, and observed approaches in the United States of America, Europe, Romania, and Spain. So we're not talking about that. If we don't see the algorithm, what can we discuss? Everything is bad. I agree. Everything is bad. If only we had a magic wand to erase everything and start over. Yes, provided that there's a risk that the foam that's now at the crest of the wave, all these bearded bussificators with brainwashed youth, along with the radicals paid from who knows where, will come to power, or this criminal regime will remain and become even stronger.
America won't allow this. If America wasn't watching, Zelensky would have been removed long ago. Now Trump isn't removing him quickly or decisively. Because of the risk you mentioned, it's impossible to control all the armed people right now. It's a very complicated situation, and that's the only thing keeping Zelensky in power. That's why they're stripping it away from him layer by layer. I'm telling you, the algorithm is clear. A new party is being formed, libertarian or not, with such views, and it goes to the elections within the current system.
And it loses. It loses because the elections are set up against it. The electoral system is set up against it, and it loses. It doesn't have access. Look, no one here will cancel mobilization. No one here will cancel media control. No one here will cancel the oligarchy, and all of them won't let a new player come to power.
Look, just a second. The 5% threshold, yes. If 5% of people, I'm not ready to talk in absolute numbers right now. I'm not ready to say how many thousands of people that is. They cast their vote, the party wins. If they don't win. If there aren't 5% of voters in the country who want these changes, what are we talking about?
5% in the Verkhovna Rada has no real influence. They just collect a salary. 5% is a faction of 30 people. They don't influence anything at all, absolutely.
Under the old system, you might have 30 people inside, but 100,000 outside supporting them.
But they won't be there since the majority will pass a law to shoot them, just as the code was passed.
No, well, that's what you think over there.
This was already Ukrainian practice. A decision was made. Berkut shot people by the hundreds, and radicals fired from the other side too. That's a separate story.
That's why we can say, Tymoshenko, you can basically do it.
No, not Tymoshenko. Anyone. The lesser evil should help us, and we need to seize this chance.
We considered Zelensky the lesser evil, not Poroshenko. I agree with your view on Poroshenko. It happened the way it happened. Tymoshenko will now tell you that I'm going to implement a libertarian economy here like in Argentina, but in reality, she'll keep working with the oligarchs. You're saying this is right and that's wrong. I'll just say, Tatiana, let people comment.
That's right. Let them write. Everything is wrong. Why did Zelensky go off like that? In 2019, when he suddenly changed course, people didn't come out to influence things. Those 100,000 stayed home, if only they hadn't. And they wouldn't have let the grant eaters rewrite his entire program by 180 degrees. Suddenly, it's all about army, language, and faith again. He reversed his stance. He once said language wasn't an issue, but now he's focused on Russian, citing Article 10 of the Constitution. You're nearly a second or third-rate person. But he was already saying something else. He said not to touch the private entrepreneurs, but then he changed his mind and people didn't support him. We, the private entrepreneurs, went out in September. And you know what they told us? They said, Lee, what? The hustlers are out. The hustlers are out for their own interests. If 100,000 had come out, then Zelensky couldn't have done it.
And do you know why they didn't come out? Do you know why they didn't come out? Because 95% of the media were under Soros. Television played an important role, but now that's changed.
And now it's under Soros too. Fiala controls 95% of the media, together with Pinchuk. There's no access. Fiala controls the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine. Fiala controls the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. Fiala even controls the Security Service of Ukraine now, because they've all softened up. They're completely under Soros's influence. Even Manyuk has attached himself to the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, and the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine is Soros. It's the Renaissance Foundation, which has bought everyone.
It's not that simple. There's full cooperation with the FBI. Soros's people created them, then President Trump arrived in September, and now there's a new FBI supervisor. It's not that simple. There are multiple influences involved.
Well, for now, we see the influence is completely under the sway of Soros and Fiala Pinchuk. Maybe they're trying there, but it's not working out. The situation in the United States is tough. Trump is barely holding on. If he loses the congressional elections, he could be impeached and Soros supporters may return. That's why they're sitting, with one butt on two chairs. That's the problem. And here we really just have bargaining going on. An agreement is being made with Zelensky, who Trump is now pressuring heavily, and Zelensky is already yielding. He's now under pressure from Soros supporters, along with Malyuk, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. This pressure continues. Let's be honest, why did they target Tymoshenko? I'm not defending her. Malyuk was involved. I know that for sure. The Security Service of Ukraine was in charge and always around us. There are still some decent, moderate people there, as we say. He remained in his office until the end, giving deputies small pistols and believing he was in control due to a deal with the Soros crowd. If Yulia hadn't given 11 votes, he wouldn't have been removed. Yulia did add fuel to the fire. Without those votes, nothing would have happened. And then they said, stand up, we're starting. Because Fiala, Soros, and Pinchuk are negotiating with Zelensky, not letting him go completely over to Trump. And they were even ready for it. I also have this information from reliable sources. From the Security Service, they were ready to use force and then accuse Zelensky of betraying Ukraine. These radical groups would have supported him, the security forces, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, removing him and fighting until the last Ukrainian. Because that's a fact. That's just how it is. And Zelensky, Tymoshenko, she is absolutely not for Zelensky, but she understands that this government must be held accountable. Most people are in it for the money. That's the interesting part. Most people are in it for the money. And in the government, most people are greedy and after money. There are a few idealists who are ready to lay themselves on the line.
Trump is in it for money, interest, and nobility all at once. Dennis, do you think he's hanging by a thread, as Serhiy said?
No, he's far from hanging by a thread. The year 26 will be very eventful. Serhiy is right. If he and the Republicans lose the midterms on November 3rd, they might even announce impeachment for Trump. Tatiana, let's pause so everyone understands. I mentioned Soros supporters and most of the media for a reason. Serhiy, I somewhat agree with him, not on ideology, but conceptually, he'd be right if this were the old Ukraine. However, things have changed now. Let Serhiy say how many millions or hundreds of thousands of views he gets on his YouTube channel per month. You understand? And then let him compare it with the numbers, for example, of that same Fiala. And he'll see that he has a decent percentage of Fiala's views on YouTube. I get about 2.5 to 3.5 million views per month. And that's with me uploading something once every 3 or 4 days. That's what I'm getting at. Zelensky is killing television. He actually helped us. People switched to YouTube. People switched to YouTube. Now they're watching totally different information sources. If the oligarchic channels were still around, of course it would be more democratic, I agree with that, but they would just be pushing a different kind of rotten content. And why? Sergey, I don't think he's wrong, but people need to understand this. Now it's a new informational era, but even before, you could get 5%. Resistance is understandable, and that's how it is. But if 5% of the voters don't want change, what can we even talk about? And it's naive to think that someone there or Tymoshenko will do it from the current ones. It's absurd. That's why I say the country is at the point where people realize everything is going wrong. And I'm not even talking about reforms. The country is not reformable. There's nothing to reform starting from scratch. It's all or nothing. Waiting for Donbass and Crimea to return, hoping life will improve, is pointless. Even with them, there may still be no electricity, gas, or other necessities. Should people focus on Donbass and Crimea or on lacking electricity and heat? Probably on themselves. Ukraine should do the same. We have territories that need to succeed. If people say we can't privatize because the oligarchs will take over, that's a problem. We can't do this because of everything. Like I said, I'll do my best, but if I lose, I don't know how the media will react. That's it.
People, does this depend on you? Much depends on it.
Not from us, but from people, and from us that we speak correctly. Once again, for everyone who understands, take a pen and write it down. In order to change any legislation, you need 226 votes. Any 226 votes.
I said not to change it, Serhiy, in the current one.
You say it doesn't matter if no one comes to the new format elections, 226? Even if you, under the current system, get 5% is a maximum of 30 votes in the Verkhovna Rada. Even if it's 10, what can they do? Nothing. If there are just 30 or 50, nothing, or even 100, who will each spend 400,000 hryvnias every month. So you absolutely need a majority to come. That's why libertarians, as you correctly say, will watch YouTube, maybe vote, maybe give something. But this number won't change anything. The one who can make a difference is the one who grows at the expense of the libertarians. And to find an agreement with him and demand something is an opportunity, because everything else is a radical way that leads to even more victims, civil war, and Putin rides in triumph wherever he wants. Let's read history. Everything repeats in a spiral. Let's read history.
You will never have 226 votes for positive changes. Let 30 libertarians enter and submit the right bills, backed by 100,000 supporters outside.
There won't be, they'll shoot, because the majority will make a decision, like they did in 2014, and Berkut, those young men in black and white you mentioned, will start shooting. Do you understand where the danger is?
Look, Serhiy, you're trying to immediately link the method I'm talking about, or the path I'm talking about, to fatal consequences.
And what kind? What kind? Don't you see that now it's already like this? Either you're the boss or you're lost. Everything is so radicalized now that it's a matter of life and death. And let's not even mention today's situation. Well, yes, that's why you're immediately a Kremlin agent. You're a Kremlin agent. I'm a Kremlin agent. I get threats regularly. I don't know about you. I think it's the same. I know everything perfectly well. You're a Kremlin agent. I'm a Kremlin agent. If the radicals reach us, they'll likely shoot us in the head, if not torture us first. Well, that's a fact. And you're talking about libertarians. They'll be shot on approach just like that. Look.
Wait, Tymoshenko will be jailed, so what's your point?
Imprisoning her is more difficult because she's already established. She has her own system, her own structure, and she has money. You're absolutely right. She has money, friends, she does.
If the Libertarian Party comes in, which I support ideologically, if a party with this ideology forms, gathers a few people, and does everything right but lacks support, then maybe 100 people could join in the next election.
Sorry, the call interrupted. Sorry, I'm listening. If you want to continue, go ahead.
Yes, 30 members of the faction, let's call them that, enter parliament, but they accomplish nothing. So in the next elections, 150 people might get in, or there could be early elections. People will see that these 30 are doing everything right, so in the early elections, we'll get 150 in there. Do you understand? And this isn't the kind of revolutionary path you were talking about, but it's the right way, while you're talking about making deals with the devil who has been betraying Ukraine for 35 years.
Well, you could think of it that way. So I'll be the pessimist and you'll be the optimist. But out of those 30 people you bring in, how many will sell out? Have you dealt with Ukrainians before? Look at how everyone has changed their tune now. For example, I respect you because you don't change your stance. But look at how many Russian speakers, just to get into power, have renounced their mother and father, their lullabies, and suddenly switched to Ukrainian. After gaining power, won't they change again if they've already betrayed their own parents? I'm a realist, so why don't you continue? Well, we're going to talk about those individuals, and they also want power. They'll come and someone will show them a stack of cash. Is it 20,000 a month now? They used to pay 10,000, so they're getting more. Of those 30, maybe 10 will stay, and people will see this and be disappointed. Remember the year 2014, people came, Parashuk, Havrilyuk, how quickly they were bought.
Havrilyuk, Serhiy can't be members of the Libertarian Party. We could do anything like that.
Look, I know, I see who's in the Libertarian Party, who switched sides. Now a Russian speaker who once argued with me and defended Russian. I now defend Russian even more, not for the language itself, but for Article 10 of the Constitution. They abruptly abandoned their principles. He abandoned his father and mother. To me, that's just a scumbag. He'll abandon everyone. So why are you showing off? Our Constitution includes the Russian language. We're a multinational state. If you're Jewish, call yourself Jewish. Don't put on a vyshyvanka. Don't change your shoes. If you're Russian, so what? You live here. You were born here. You're a citizen of Ukraine. But they all changed their shoes.
I support and agree with you, but this isn't idealism. I'm just saying you should do the right thing and let things happen as they will. And you suggest making a compromise with the devil.
But I don't want to. No matter what happens, that's still someone's life, even in a civil war. For me, as a centrist, the most important thing is human life. And I'm afraid that whatever happens, it will end.
Same for me. If that's the question, let the person pack and leave Ukraine to save their life.
I'm advocating for opening the borders, but they refuse. Even if the war ends, they've said the borders will stay closed for 2 or 3 more years. Moreover, who supports this doctrine? The United States, Germany, and France. Since our immigrants are now in America and I talk to them, I'm glad I didn't leave. Now my acquaintances stay inside, afraid to leave their homes. He even has a password, but is still too scared to go out. They don't care about the password. See the double standards. They don't want our migrants, so they'll send them back to Ukraine, leaving us stuck like prisoners. That's America's stance.
You're a bit mistaken. I just know about these things. It's not as simple as it seems. I sympathize. Tatiana, we're stuck. What's next?
I wanted to ask you, Dennis, how can we change the system so that what Sergei is talking about doesn't happen? Sergei says that when people come to power, the deputies will vote, so they'll be giving out 20, 30,000. If we follow conscience, honor, and justice, we'll see where we end up. How can we set up a system so that this corruption scheme in the government, in the Verkhovna Rada, and in the regional councils is eliminated? What should we do?
You can't do that. Regional councils are one issue. The Verkhovna Rada and corruption are another. I can only continue if this is about people's deputies. Regarding Serhiy, since we're talking about parliament, the only answer is having the right people. Only the right people can change the corrupt system. They can either dismantle it or join it. I can be optimistic while Serhiy is pessimistic, or vice versa. I mean, no offense to Serhiy. I did a broadcast with Lubarsky where he kept challenging me. But I say Putin won't agree. He says Putin will, but I insist he won't. People just need to decide who to support. That's why only the right people, the people who vote, they just need to use their heads. It's kind of a simple thing, but that's how it works. Because when rockets are falling on you, when you're sitting without electricity and someone came to my last stream, Denise, what do you think? Maybe we should support Ms. Tymoshenko. Is she the best compromise? In Sergei's words, 2 days later, Tymoshenko is on camera with dollars.
And I know what I would do. I have a recipe. It's been written a long time ago. And when I start telling it to those who are going into power, they get scared of me. The recipe is actually very simple. Publicity, if you're going into politics, regardless of the position. In the oath of a public servant, you sign a clause that gives anyone the right in any way to investigate the style and details of your life and your family, your closest relatives, your wife, your father and mother, and you allow this information to be shared in any way. And I, as a public servant, for example, if I plan to go, give myself the right to challenge these actions in court.
You're already discussing how to remove corruption from the system, which won't work, while we're discussing something else.
It will work. They're just afraid of it. That's all. We all know how it goes. Now someone will put on an embroidered shirt, tell you a fairy tale, and that's it. People read only the headlines. People won't bother to find out who his father is.
The camera won't work.
What should we do with the information?
It works, it works. We've done this and they work. When we were doing the smuggling stop.
You know, no one will go to work.
That's right, because they're going to rob, but official people will go, you'll go, others will go who just want to put their name down.
I won't join a corrupt system made for this work. You must understand.
Dennis, would you go if your whole life was completely illustrated personally?
Publicly, so that it would be public. I'm already public, so what's the question?
Where do you fly? What time do you get up in the morning? What do you do?
No, Tatiana, wait. We're talking about one thing right now. Corruption in the Parliament Hall is exclusively what's in the head of a particular deputy. Sergei is talking about corruption in the system when there's an official who manages some kind of resource.
No, corruption in general. You say we should vote for a person, but how? How can we really know what's in someone's head? If he changed his stance, rejected his parents, and switched from Russian to Ukrainian just to get into power, do you want to dig around in his head? It doesn't matter. There are cameras everywhere at the workplace, and it's not just a camera, not just a camera. This means that I have the right, but now it's forbidden, to secretly record anywhere with a hidden camera where a deputy is hanging out, who they're talking to record them, but now it's prohibited by law to record, now it's forbidden.
Sergei, he'll sit down now, take his smartphone in the restroom, and text whoever he needs to.
We'll set up a recording in the restroom. If I record a government official, that's covered by an article, you know? Still, I support recording and sharing it publicly. And then the situation will change. We put a stop to smuggling. When the customs officer had a camera on him, at least he was busy working and not playing Tetris or some other game. And the same goes for the deputies. We have the right to know everything, and then we'll figure out why the car is registered to the mother-in-law. Why did Stepanchuk's aunt rent an apartment and you can go there? This is a tool nobody wanted, and I always ask people going into power if they're ready. No, come on, what if they find out everything? They'll know if you really are, excuse me, Ukrainian or not, Russian speaking or not, because we're being deceived. Zelensky deceived us, he just changed his appearance, and now they'll change too, and I even think that right now they're going to deceive us again, but we'll see. Stop.
What will we do about it? We've learned a lot. National Anti-Corruption Bureau tapes, Mindich operations, Tymoshenko's tapes, suspicions, yet nothing progresses. What should we do once we know that?
We don't know. No, we don't know. No one let us hear 1,000 hours. They fooled us. They promised 1,000 hours, but gave us just 35 minutes. Let's be honest. Because on those thousands of hours, they themselves announced that King Midas was supposed to be there, and that's Zelensky, we understand that. There was supposed to be Alibaba, there were supposed to be others, but we weren't allowed to listen to them. And when we do get to hear them, then we'll see.
This is a question exclusively for the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine. You gave a good example with customs. Let the viewers know, here's Sergei Dorotich's suggestion. Put cameras at customs and monitor everything. Now, Yeliseevich's suggestion, a flat 10% import duty on all goods, regardless of quantity or purpose, and only check for clearly banned items like drugs and weapons. So why use a camera? Who would want it cheaper if you've paid 10% and are honest and clean?
10% is a high customs value. Many goods are imported into Ukraine at zero value, yet you're saying 10.
Wait, everything that doesn't concern Euro quotas. Where we trade with Europe within quotas, that's a different story.
Not only that, there are those critical import goods that come in at a zero customs rate. There are a lot at zero: energy carriers, various types, precious metals, goods that are not produced in Ukraine. They have zero duty. So you can't do it like that here. Such a simple solution. We already had an Office of Simple Solutions. They made so many decisions that it was overwhelming. For example, Mr. Yeliseevich, my position is zero. I believe that everything should be imported into Ukraine at a zero customs rate. I think there shouldn't be any. And then just the sales tax is collected. Why should anyone set anything else?
I agree, it's a good proposal.
And then we don't need customs. We have a whole bunch, about 75,000 customs officers. In general, why do we need so many? Why are there so many of them?
I'll tell you, because actually you gave some specific examples. But the main group of goods is subject to a value-added tax of 20%. This is a catalog for duties. Payment isn't by invoice, but set by someone else. My system eliminates that. Then you can suggest 0%.
We reject the value-added tax. I oppose it and prefer the American system, except for property tax. We don't consider the value-added tax. But I'll say it again about the customs duty. Actually, the average customs burden, I might be wrong, but back then we did research in 2009, and it was less than 10% on average. because there's a role.
You can't measure it that way. Many goods in the European Union already have zero tariffs. Focus on the taxed items. You need to simplify and lower costs. Zero means zero. There's enough there to cover the budget. But cameras are not the solution.
It's a solution. How will you manage this yourself?
That's obvious. They're already there.
No, they're not hanging in every official's office. And how are they hanging?
No, I'm talking about customs officers.
No, about everyone. Look, how does it work for our buzzificators? They have a camera hanging. And can you watch it online? The camera should be online with an open IP address. Any old lady with free time can go in, watch, and write it down. That's how it should work, unlike when the boss collects these videos. Then the state transport inspection gets cut. The state transport inspection is an example. Remember, 2 years ago, you got rid of it. Cameras are cut in another way. What's the point of that camera? Only open ones with the IP address written to the cloud, and everyone can watch. Then he'll be doing his job at work, not picking his nose. Then we'll be writing, and moreover, we'll lift the restrictions on recording. Right now, even you, when talking to a government official, risk breaking the law if you record the conversation. You know that. You don't have the right to record, because if you do, you have to give a warning. Moreover, in Ukraine, you can't record phone calls. People call me, but the criminal code says I can't record the conversation. Do you understand? I want to record this conversation, but this feature is blocked here on all smartphones, even though it's available in Thailand, India, and other countries.
Currently, we lack democracy and freedom of expression.
And we've never had democracy. Moreover, there is very little democracy even in Europe and America. Compared to today's situation with AES, I really respect Trump for caring about America. Right now, there is democracy there. There are some distortions there too.
Don't confuse a country's internal affairs with non-citizens. Everyone detained by immigration and customs enforcement. Yes, there are issues I dislike, but claiming there's no democracy because of immigration and customs enforcement is wrong. They handle foreign citizens. It's a different matter.
I agree. He protects the interests of his voters. Trump protects the interests of his voters. And if you don't have a passport, you're not his voter. But that's a tough position, in my opinion, to kill a person just because he's an illegal immigrant and works legally, pays taxes, and doesn't break the law.
I agree with you on this issue.
Once again, the situation is that the only thing is transparency. And I believe, yes, an evolutionary approach. It seems to me that if you told me how to do everything else, I might agree. But for now, I don't see the algorithm. Counting on the people to become more transparent. Oh, God.
Let's move on. Let's trust people. Let's believe. What do you think about our conversation, about how you chose a leader, whether radical or moderate? Write what you are counting on. Let's finish our conversation with this question because it's very important for everyone. And no matter whose stream I'm on, they always ask, when will the war end? I want to ask you the following. When will Trump withdraw from the negotiation process in Ukraine? And I offer you some answer options. When Ukraine achieves complete peace and a peace agreement, or when Trump no longer has economic interests regarding Ukraine, or when he becomes disappointed in both Putin and Zelensky, gets tired of them, and simply withdraws from this negotiation process.
The first option, only when he ends the war. Because a lot of resources are being spent right now, both financial and non-financial. A lot has been invested by Trump's team. These are not the kind of people who would put in so much effort and then walk away from negotiations. Walking away from negotiations means losing to Putin. And now Putin is being put in his place by Trump's actions in Ukraine, Iran, Venezuela, and in some other places. This will keep happening worldwide, so it's too late for Trump to withdraw now. He could have backed out early on when things weren't working out at the end of last spring, beginning of summer. But he didn't back out, and now there's no way out anymore, only a way in.
Serhiy, do you agree with this position?
You didn't mention one more point. Trump is a businessman. He sees that the United States has invested money in Ukraine. It's just a good investment. And he will exit this process when he sells this investment for a higher price and gets a profit in negotiations with China, with Russia in particular, with these traders. That's when he'll exit. And I see this as exactly the position. It's the right one for the United States, but it's very painful for Ukraine. We're just a bargaining chip, and the point is simply that it's all about negotiations. Moreover, I have bad information that the overwhelming majority from the Republican circle are now ready to bargain with Ukraine and to give us up to Russia for certain other agreements.
Can you clarify what it means to give us to Russia?
It's simple. We were given two options which I can't help but trust. Very respectable people brought together by fate. There are two options: a forceful takeover where they gradually crush us, or political expansion through elections with the rise of parties that may not be pro-Russian, but are at least Russia-friendly. If the military option is chosen, statehood is lost, and any captured territory will become part of Russia under its constitution. They won't repeat the early 20th century mistake of letting Ukraine remain a thorn in their side. But this kind of political expansion would allow statehood to be preserved, maybe in a way similar to, although it's not the best example, Belarus. But only such methods are being considered now. But so far, no final agreement has been reached, primarily with Russia, for it to become part of the Western world. Russia is also bargaining and balancing between China and the United States of America, trying to take advantage of the situation. And with each passing day, it is becoming more politically significant. Like a golden card?
Do you agree that we are now a bargaining chip?
In the context that Seri is talking about, definitely not. Ukraine, there is bargaining. You could call it that. It's a matter of pulling Russia away from China. Shuttle diplomacy involves many variables. If one thing occurs, it triggers another, or sometimes nothing happens, creating a chain of events. If Russia gives more to Ukraine, that's it. Goodbye. And Sergei's scenario doesn't work because Russia is already richer and could have offered America much more than what's in Ukraine a long time ago. There's also geopolitics. Ukraine is still the largest country in Europe, right next to Russia. It's a country in complete chaos that can be Americanized. Ukraine will be to Eastern Europe what Israel is to the Middle East. Poland is already practically becoming that. This is a long-term game. America works 20 or 30 years ahead.
I didn't say to sell only one thing. Look again. Russia should be separated from China, mainly for geopolitical reasons, not economic ones. Well, right now, Trump has enough with South America, and basically he covers all his resource needs just with South America. They have the entire periodic table there. Just the Amazon alone can cover everything. And it's not the resources that interest him. The year 2035, I know for sure, and it's written in the United States National Security Strategy, that there will be confrontation with China, and it's about the nuclear arsenal. The year 2035, when it comes to China, they have clear plans, and the Chinese are carrying them out right now. China's nuclear arsenal is intended to match that of the United States. Russia's advantage lies in its own nuclear arsenal. It's bad, crooked, faulty. Half of it might not launch or fire, but the other half will. That one will dictate the terms. He will be, well, not the king of the hill, but at least his word will be decisive, and that's what it's all about now, and that's what the deal is for. Well, there was a discussion in the corridors at one time when someone asked, so what, will you give up Ukraine? And there were Poles there, and they said, so what, will you give up Poland too? They considered it and replied, we'll give up Poland as well. That's why the Poles know and are very alarmed.
Dennis, do you have anything to add?
No, we're recording all of this, and then lifetime will tell.
Time will show who's right. Let people comment, the Lord will decide.
Do you have any more questions for each other?
I don't have any, just one question. I believe it's very important that, well, first of all, even though we had our disagreements, I still want to pay my respects, that Mr. Yeliseevich keeps his composure, and that's very important in modern politics. And public figures are generally just passing through. As far as I remember, people don't stay there for long, but you hold your position, and that's very important. But I would still ask that, since you have a very powerful voice, the local channels listen to you, you have an excellent manner of presenting information, and your rhetoric is convincing. But it's very important that you also provide a clear action plan, because so far our assessments completely coincide, but I am offering a clear algorithm as a practitioner on how to achieve this. Well, I even know how to gather people for an event. I know that you need to walk through the rows, hold meetings, and in all my statements, when I discuss a topic, I make suggestions. That's how I was taught. If you talk about something, if you raise a topic, you need to have a solution algorithm, and preferably two options. And that's very important for, I consider you a leader of public opinion. It's important for opinion leaders to provide a clear algorithm, a clear course of action, and real actions in practice. That's the only request I have. Overall, our assessments definitely match.
Thank you very much. If you have no more questions or wishes for each other, I thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for coming to the Liberty Ukraine channel, sharing your thoughts and ideas and expressing them. People often comment on you both positively and negatively. This shows you're noticed, visible, and people care about your opinion. Thank you all for your kind words, comments, likes, and everything. Until next time.
Thank you. All the best.
Goodbye.